All right, welcome everyone. We're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here for
Podcast
number
not
44.
Our Attack on Titan reaction. And it's podcast number 45.
Number 45.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh,
and
guys.
guess what it's about?
Attack on Titan. Shingeki no Kyojin.
Yes.
Yes, this show has shocked the anime community. It has wowed the anime community. And it's still going.
Right, like...
some of our... some of us are kind of surprised. Like,
right, because it started 5 years ago, and like with that whole gap of time between
we're just now
one
getting a
and
third
two,
season.
and we're just now getting a third season, like the hype and the shock that it initially had
is mostly gone,
gone.
Kinda.
Yeah.
Like we are in a new age, so to speak, of anime, and Attack on Titan is just one of the greats. It is not being considered as much the greats, but we are going to talk about specifically why we like it,
right,
and why our hype for it has stood the test of time, despite the hiatus.
Yeah.
But before we do that, we got to give a VIP shout out to one of our VIPs who joined recently, Guillermo Molina.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your support. It means a lot.
It really does.
Appreciate having you here, and be sure to check out the Discord, because I don't know if you're actually on that yet. But either way, thank you for supporting us on Patreon.
Yeah.
And here we go. We're going to get into this podcast. So specifically, we're going to go over some specific things that each of us really appreciate about Attack on Titan's themes, but also why we like it uniquely to other shows, but also how Attack on Titan does these specific things well, whereas it might be actually something that you would see in other shows.
Yeah, because we want to basically help you guys remember just how awesome of a show this is before this third season starts, because we can kind of just take it for granted.
Yeah.
Oh, another season of Attack on Titan. What else is new?
Yeah.
You know,
yeah,
because that's the world we live in now.
Right, and that's awesome. Like this year for anime has been fantastic, and it's easy to think about Attack on Titan and go like, well, yeah, in a lot of ways it is overrated in specific parts here and there. But guys, when Attack on Titan is good, it's good. So first things first we're going to talk about is that in Attack on Titan, the whole story is about humanity's struggle to overcome an insurmountable problem in the Titans. And a lot of stories have done that kind of theme. You have giant monsters, zombies, you have, interdimensional angels from another existence of whatever,
all kinds of stuff. It's been done so many times, but very rarely is it communicated with the same amount of impact and gravitas so that we really feel like humanity is struggling against something that is impossible, right?
Right, and that's the point, is that it's not about the insurmountable problem being this grand thing with all this spectacle, in that it is important, but it really boils down to what Attack on Titan does correctly is presenting humanity's true struggle.
Right.
And every good story out there has some element of struggle.
Exactly. That's what makes the story.
Yes, exactly. Be it localized to the individual main character or to the world as a whole, and that struggle is what the world is based upon. And Attack on Titan's world is very much one of struggle. It starts off in the very first episode of the anime showing and this is the time for humanity's counterattack, or humanity's fighting back.
And then it cuts to basically the whole town that they see and all that stuff, and it's really cool. But the part, for instance, where the Survey Corps comes back for the first time, right?
Yeah.
And Aaron's watching it and it's all cool. When I first saw that scene, I was kind of like, okay, this is a little over dramatic.
Oh yeah, and Attack on Titan gets a lot of flack for that. It can get really over dramatic.
Why are we shouting? Yes, that's there, but it uses that so well to showcase the struggle, and that's not something that can be overlooked.
And these are human beings. One of the things that, while the story revolves around certain characters that have the ability to transform into Titans, one of the things that the story doesn't do is start off with that.
Right.
You get the feeling that they are wanting to remind you that these are human beings, and while there might be some that have the mecha magical powers or whatever, those are the few. Those are the very rare. When it comes down to it, oftentimes the battle is a bunch of people stuck in a situation that's impossible, like in season 2 when they're on the tower, in season 1 when they run out of gas.
Exactly.
It's those moments there where you realize that this is just humanity doing the best they can to overcome something that is an impossible situation. And that just really can get your blood going for like
and even
excitement and hype.
Even with the whole idea that Attack on Titan is essentially a flesh mecha, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't start out that way. So as far as the setting of the world, right? You're introduced to this world and you don't have that, even though it comes in later. So the world that you're introduced to is from that perspective of, holy crap, this is scary, right?
Yeah.
And then when they finally do bring the whole flesh mecha aspect into it, it's not something that's like pervasive throughout it, right? It's something that's rare, right? The whole fact that like, oh, Eren can, turn into a Titan or whatever. It's like, oh, okay, but that's not happening every episode.
Right.
There's still the human struggle of all the other people that can't do all those crazy things.
Exactly. And that kind of leads into the next point here that I wanted to bring up, which was that humanity's potential is put onto display despite the whole world being against us. Now, this is something that the show does very well, is it basically says this is the last human city, and that's a trope done to death.
Yeah.
But the thing is that you really believe it. Like, the way that the story revolves entirely around the city, that no one even knows about anything going on outside it. But despite that, you see people, individuals, rise up as having the potential to fight against whatever is outside. And the thing is that this can be generalized to mean anything in the thematic kind of interpretation side of things. But having this in there juxtaposed with humanity's struggle is a great 1-2 combo. So you have people like Eren who can transform into a Titan. Sure. But no, we have other people like Armin who are genius level strategists at a young age. We have the whole, the whole squad essentially. We have
all
Mikasa,
those different characters. Yeah. Well, yeah. And Mikasa almost sometimes can feel like, okay, yeah, she's a badass. All right, cool.
She is all of humanity's potential, almost. Almost too much of it. But then you have other characters like Captain Levi.
Or Jean. Like his focus in the first season was fantastic because he's just basically a regular dude that doesn't want to have to deal with all this madness.
Right. But their characters have their potential almost subdued until they're put into the fray. Like, until they're put into the worst possible situation, and then they get to shine.
War is the great crucible in which all heroes are forged.
Exactly. But the thing is that crucible, that the whole world essentially being against them, isn't shown straight up all the way. And that leads into kind of the next point, which is that the world is, well, to quote a favorite line of mine, the world is, dark and cruel, but it is also very beautiful. Right. And it's terrifying.
Yes, and the way they communicate both sides of that coin, the wonder and the terror, like the true terror of this world is fantastic. Because you can have those moments, even though, like, say, the moments at the beginning with Eren and Armin and Mikasa all looking over the book and being like, wow, there's fields of sand, what does that even look like? And salty water and, whoa, right? That's so amazing.
And there's just this wonder about it where
there's
they're
this
so excited.
Wonder. And then they see all the horrible stuff that happens and it's like, which is a great juxtaposition, a great, contrast, right? Yeah. Because it makes it so that way when they show the darkness of this world that they've created, it doesn't feel cliche or cheap because they've shown the flip side to it too.
Yes.
But then the fact that ends up being brought up less and less, that can be a negative because it's like, oh, I want more of that stuff. But then that can also get at the idea of the real world, that when these crazy things come up, the childlike innocence and stuff can disappear.
Yeah, and you might have to hold on to it internally. There's multiple points where Armin reminds Eren about their dream of going to see the outside world and going to see the salty seas, essentially. Going to find the deserts.
Exactly.
And that being a reminder of something that the characters hope for, but it's ultimately unknown. Right. They don't really have any proof that it exists other than books that are written out there. But
exactly.
Even then, they can't really fully believe in those unless they
see it themselves, right? Which gives us motivation to want to follow these characters as they do what they do,
right?
And here's another thing. Okay, this line we've all heard it so many times that it doesn't really mean anything anymore. But I want you to just best you can remove it from your memory,
right?
And just think. Imagine hearing this for the first time. Remember what it was like hearing this for the first time. On that day, humanity received a grim reminder that we lived in fear of the Titans, or them, and we were disgraced to live in these cages that we called walls.
Yeah.
What a start to a story. What,
Right.
like, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys know that I nerd out about Attack on Titan. It's one of my favorite shows, but like that as a way to start a story, that's so good. Like, to make us invested in the world, because if you think about it, in stories, it is very hard to get people invested in a world without getting them first invested in the characters. Attack on Titan is one of the few stories that I've seen do that so well.
Yeah.
They get you attached to the characters too, and then the characters are then interested in the world, and that makes you even more invested in the world. But the fact that they're able to start out with the world and have it work
is incredible.
That's incredible.
And leading into the next point, which is the characters, this show has an ensemble cast, which you know is something that I'm quite a fan of. But more so, this is something that we both touched upon when we were discussing why we liked Attack on Titan so much, that these characters are passionate.
Yep.
Now, yes, Attack on Titan is very over the top. So obviously the passion is going to be over the top. We have Eren as the main character, case in point.
Exactly.
But one of the things that's really special is that when you have these characters against this insurmountable, impossible threat, impossible problem to overcome, and it's essentially asking humanity to rise to the occasion. There are moments when the characters need to call up something that's beyond themselves in order to help themselves believe that they can actually overcome this problem. And many times in my life, and I know probably in your life as well, you need to kind of go up onto the hill and declare loudly into the abyss,
we gotta get back.
But is it worth the price of our soul? Yeah, exactly. That kind of thing is important. It taps into kind of a deeper aspect of humanity. And we've always said that it's easier to follow passionate characters than it is to follow dispassionate characters.
Absolutely.
And it would be very easy in this world to have everyone be edgy and moody. And in a lot of ways, one of everyone's favorite characters is the dispassionate, moody character in Captain Levi. Thing is, though, is the reason why he's everyone's favorite for that is because he's surrounded by so many intense, passionate, over-the-top
which makes
characters.
him the cold pillar in the storm, right?
Right.
And here's the thing. I've seen stories where they try and do the dark setting, right? And they try and do that, and that can be fine. You can do those settings, and it can be great. Attack on Titan is a great example of how it can work.
For sure.
But one of the things that happens a lot of times in these kinds of stories that I've seen is that the characters have too little passion.
Yep.
Because while we can laugh at the Attack on Titan characters for always shouting, because that will solve their problems. Shouting really loud solve my problems. But it's really good that they have that, because in the world that they're in, they need to have that level of passion, right? Because it is a mad, insane, crazy world that they're in. And if these were actual people in there, they would be constantly breaking down and, having tears spout from their eyes and, just completely having mental breakdowns, because that's what would happen, right? That's what would happen to you and me. That's why when we think about getting transported to a fantasy world, we don't want it to be Attack on Titan. Right?
So absolutely. Another thing that you wanted to bring up about the characters in this show was kind of how the presentation of these characters was handled.
So no fan service.
What do you know?
Now this might seem like not that big of a deal, but it's a big deal. Because especially in the kind of show that Attack on Titan is. Because you can have anime, you can have shows where they do fan service, and that's fine because it's not trying to take itself super seriously, so the fact that there's fan service in there, whatever, right? Konosuba, it works. But with Attack on Titan, the fact that they didn't have any fan service, thank you. Gender-neutral uniforms, thank you. We can not even really notice that it's there now because we're used to it. It's Attack on Titan, whatever. But I mean, can you imagine how bad that would have been if, how hard it would be to take Mikasa's character seriously if she was, in some sort of, super low-cut,
just a uniform that didn't even match anyone else's.
Exactly, right.
For no reason other than, fan service.
Exactly, and in a lot of cases, I understand where anime creators are coming from, because they might think, okay, I need to make the characters visually stand out, and if they all have identical uniforms, that can make it harder. But Attack on Titan didn't do that, and they didn't make it so that everyone had some crazy hairstyle in order to compensate for it. these people felt like people, even if sometimes they just fit into their shtick.
That is a really good point, though, about the hair in particular as well, is that there's no character with, like, wacky purple hair.
Yeah, like the closest would be, like,
hair.
Sasha, because she has,
Sasha's hair
kind
is,
of like auburn.
It's actually, like, red-brown, so auburn hair.
Exactly.
But the characters, on some level, people got so confused, actually, between, like, Krista and Armin. Because Armin has some very definite feminine-esque features to him that there's even a joke of, like,
who's your favorite female character? Oh, Armin.
Armin's everyone's favorite female character. But the ways that this show broke a lot of boundaries, I would say, in having a large cast of characters, male and female, and some more androgynous characters in the mix as well, not have them have to define specifically anything about, like, oh, and here's our token fan service female character.
Right.
Here's our token fan service male character.
And subduing the tropes. Like, even though Eren is very much like turns into just sort of the rage monster, right? Yeah. He doesn't start as that for one, but when they do other types of tropes like Mikasa, right? Bits of yandere and kudere and whatever, it's not excessive. You see the reasoning behind it and stuff, so that, you know, when you have the clean freak like Levi or whatever, you know, all those different kind of anime tropes.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like, oh, this person is here to represent that trope.
Right. So the characters are there and not given necessarily as much depth as most shows would have, but they're there as characters to be characters, not to be their tropes and their shticks in particular. In that way, I think a lot of people have criticized a lot of the characters who are on the sidelines as having nothing really to them because they almost don't have a strong shtick enough.
Right.
And that's something that I'm like, oh, well, great. We're at the other end of the spectrum now. Fantastic problem to have.
Yeah.
Now it's just anything that you do with the character from this point on gives them actual depth.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. This character might not live long enough to get actual depth. This is Attack on Titan, so we'll see. And the final bit of this show is the rule of cool. But specifically...
Yeah, so I just wanted to mention this. So, I really want my own set of 3D maneuver gear. Because
omnidirectional maneuver gear.
Surveycon
Legion.
Because here's the thing. It goes back into the whole terror and wonder aspect.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because having humans stand up against things that could squash them like bugs, that's awesome, right? But then having there be that thing too where it's like, okay, they might have an actual chance and they can zip through the trees while they do it and everything. That does my heart so much good. Like, it's on the level in my mind as like the dire wolves in Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether it was the idea of the 3D maneuver gear or whether it would be the awesome tracking shots and animation or the amazing soundtrack that goes along with it, because the Attack on Titan soundtrack is incredible.
Amazing. It's amazing, guys.
But
this show understands not just the rule of cool, but having the presentation for the characters that are going through this struggle, that have this potential to overcome this problem, have great moments of basically triumphant victory.
Yes, exactly. Before the crashing
defeat.
And the fact that they're able to do that in a show where, like, think about the first season. How many victories did they actually have?
One.
Which one was that?
That was when they sealed the hole with Eren.
There you go. Yeah. Right. Exactly.
Uno. Yeah. Technically, Annie was kind of a loss.
Yeah, and there were other situations
where it was kind of a victory, but it's more of a neutral thing.
Like the whole thing with the gas and stuff, that was something where they didn't die.
Yes.
Like they have a lot of situations where they don't die.
Right.
But yeah, so the fact that they're able to make the struggle stay engaging while everything seems to be able to go wrong.
Constantly having things go wrong. Yeah. It's something that I think a lot of people thought would end up getting a bit repetitive. But most people I've talked with have had the opposite thing, where they felt like things have actually started to get a little bit safer.
Sure.
Things have started to get actually a little bit more relaxed. And I think, like, guys, that's just the macro side of things. You're just getting set up for an even bigger negative thing at some point.
Well, I won't say anything about that.
Okay, or since we're not going to go into theories here, another thing that you can look at it is go, okay, these characters have come a long way. their potential actually means something now.
Yes.
Like now these characters can actually win something.
Yeah.
And we went through a lot of the struggle that would bring us to constant reminders of the mortality of humanity, or the constant reminders of how much at their mercy of the Titans we are.
Yeah.
Now we have these little notches under our belt, these little victories, these little tools, these little assets that we can bring up. And when all's said and done, Attack on Titan is a really hype show with a lot of intensity surrounding it.
Oh, yeah.
And in some areas, it's not having as much depth as it needs to. But when you think about the struggle, when you think about the potential, when you think about the wonder, the terror, when you think about the characters, and then you think about just how fun and how cool this show is, you can't call it. You can't call it that overrated.
Okay, and all right. Here's the other thing. This is something I want to bring up. The fact that they took so long for season 2. Yes, did it let a lot of the hype die out? Yeah, absolutely. I remember being there on Tumblr, waiting and theorizing and all that stuff because it couldn't come out soon enough, right? But imagine what could have happened if they didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, did it need to take 4 years?
No.
Probably not. But imagine if they had been like, all right, next year we're going to do another season, and you know what, We'll do an anime original arc, or we'll maybe do a little bit of filler, or I
don't even want to think about that. Attack on Titan season 2 was such a monumental upgrade in specific areas over season 1. Season 1 was really good, but I think a lot of it was really a lot of hype that kind of
because
it
was so
to carry through it. Yeah. But then in the second season, a lot of the hype had died away. So then when we still ended up liking it, and I'd say most of us like season 2 more than season 1.
Yeah.
That's really impressive because the hype-ometer was not as high dealing with that stuff. And they did some really cool things. So looking forward to season 3, guys.
Yes.
Love this show. Love this show a whole lot. And send anyone this video if they think Attack on Titan is overrated.
Yeah.
But yeah, guys, we're going to head into the Q&A section of our podcast right now.
If you want to have your questions answered in the next podcast, leave them in the comments of this one.
Yep. And we will answer them in the future one. First question comes from Family Guy, Family Guy 10.
Yes.
Any thoughts on how these mangaka who are writing and illustrating such long-running series structure their stories, and how they're able to weave a narrative in such a way? The arc structure, basically.
like for the super long ones, like the JoJo's or whatever that have been going for forever, or Berserk,
I think the way they keep themselves sane, unless you're Togashi with Hunter x Hunter, even Togashi breaks it up into arcs, but he lets things bleed through quite a bit, is you have somewhat self-contained stories with beginning, middles, ends, and new characters brought in, and then you somewhat kind of reset things towards the kind of the baseline, but you have an original cast of characters that grow and evolve and who kind of move and shift as the arcs develop. I've heard that's how One Piece does it, at least.
Here's one of the other things that can be, I've seen at least be a really cool thing with... not as much when it's talking about ongoing plots and stuff, but because if you think about it with a manga, they don't have as much real estate with their story to work with for each iteration.
Sure.
So what that can cause is for there to be a much simpler focus for the story, either with the plot or with the themes, which can be fantastic because then they stick to it a lot better.
Totally.
Right? Because they know what they're about and they don't go off on crazy detours.
Totally.
Yeah. Eric C., what is your favorite JoJo opening so far? 2? Yeah,
2.
Sonochi no Sadame is amazing.
Stand Proud is really good.
Really good.
But Bloody Stream is just really good.
It's so good.
It's really good, guys.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that's my love for the Pillar Men and Joseph bleeding through a little bit.
Not for me. No, I've listened to the first 3 openings so many times. I know which one is my favorite. Mikey asks, can you tell us more about your siblings? Will we ever meet them? Well, that would be kind of a breach of privacy on their part to talk about them too much.
We can say how many we have.
We have a few. We have
bad a few,
and we had foster siblings.
Yes.
Not all of them are in contact with us anymore, but we had a lot of siblings. Yes. Will you ever meet them? Maybe. We'll see. Yeah. Little Duck asks, question time. What are your thoughts on love triangles? Let's just.
Yeah.
Oh, are they all terribly forced just to add drama,
drama,
or can they be done correctly in such a way that it doesn't feel like a melodrama? What are some good examples you know of, and why do they work when so many others fail?
Okay. Okay. So here's what I'll say. Love triangles. One of the ways that they are usually used is basically to engage the fangirl, or not necessarily fangirls, but just the fandom, right? To say who's going to end up with who, right? So because
The best girl, best boy.
exactly right.
Thing.
That's a tale as old as time, but it can be done very well to basically to show that basically life isn't ever super straightforward, right? That
Sure.
a lot of times there's things where you can have a kind of no-win scenario, and that's where love triangles can be tough, because if you do it really well, you'll like all the characters, and that means one person might have a bit of a sad ending.
Sure. I think that the majority of love triangles are terribly forced and just to add drama.
Yeah.
Like a large majority. We're talking like 90% of them.
Yeah.
The way they can be done correctly, I think, that doesn't feel like melodrama, is you give each character good attention to why they're involved in this love triangle. Every single one, all three characters involved. And you have actual legitimate decisions made for their characters based around the motivations that you set up initially for the characters, and you stick with that.
Right.
And you resolve the story in such a way that makes sense with the motivations set up, which requires you to have invested in these characters before their love triangle was introduced.
Yes.
So therefore, if a character is brought in just to be the love triangle set
It's
up,
probably not going to go well.
it's not going to go well.
Yeah. Yep.
So next question is from Varley. What happened to the Jacobs Apple earphones?
I got better earphones because, I mean, yeah.
Jardel Neto asks, what is your favorite video game or video game franchise? Ooh.
Mass Effect's really good.
Yeah. See, the thing is that
KOTOR?
my favorite video game out there, it's probably a little bit weird because I think about it in terms of just max enjoyment. The most fun I've ever had in a video game, actually ever, was when I played Battle for Middle-earth 2 online with my foster brother. Him and I got so good at 2v2s. It was unreal. It was so much fun.
They destroyed.
It was so good.
Yeah.
The thing is, now I play a solid amount of Hearthstone, and that's really it. Like, I don't play many video games anymore. I really loved KOTOR and Mass Effect, sure. We did love story games a lot. Like, Jacob and I in particular
He's trying to get me into Divinity Original Sin 2.
Yeah, well, that's a thing that I feel like it would be a good start-off thing for maybe our Twitch stream when we do that.
Because I a while ago I swore off video games. I was playing Dota 2 a lot, like way too much, so I was like, I'm done with that. But one of the games that I do have to shout out, I haven't played it, but I watched the walkthrough for it, and it was amazing, and that's The Last of Us. Because talk about a simple story that is character-focused and sticks to what they stick to.
Awesome.
It's really good.
Kartika Santi asks, question for you guys. If you have to rate based on personal taste, which MC in these shonen anime do you like more? Midoriya, Hinata, or Gon? Ooh, that's tough. That's really tough.
Yeah,
I'm such a coward. I want to say none of them. I like all of them the same, but I have to choose, don't I?
It's
okay. If we have to rate based on personal taste, so this is okay. That absolves me from saying one is better than the other. I feel like some of these characters have incomplete arcs right now that I can't really rate them as highly as some others.
From our perspective, they all have incomplete arcs right now.
But I feel like Hinata has a more complete arc right now.
Gotcha.
So the thing is, Deku's character is one that is classic, but it's because of his relationship with All Might that makes it more. So the thing is that I don't really relate to Deku individually as being a one of the best of these MCs. Gon, in particular, just individually, is a very good MC. But again, I have to relate him in connection to Killua.
Yeah.
With Hinata, though, he has come to a place right now in his story where I don't have to relate him directly to Kageyama anymore.
Because you can relate him to all these other different characters,
all
too.
The characters.
And because of that, he stands on his own. He stands proud.
Yeah. I would say that Hinata is my favorite personal taste of these three, But if I had to go into like a rating system as to try and figure out objectively which is better, we'd be here all day.
Yeah, I know what you mean about Hinata, and I'm not sure whether, like, okay, personal taste, Midoriya, Deku, because, but I mean, how much of that is bias? I have no idea.
Okay, well, that's fine. It's personal taste, so it doesn't matter if there's any bias.
Minami Hisamatsu. Would you guys like to visit Japan someday?
Yes.
Yeah, that'd be
very
cool.
much so.
That'd be awesome. Jason, don't you think it's unfair to praise MHA while berating other long-running battle shonens? MHA is only at episode 15 by this point. Naruto
50.
and Bleach. Yeah, 50. Yeah. Naruto and Bleach, two shonens you dislike, were extremely solid and were shaping up to be great. I'm not saying that MHA shouldn't be praised, it's very good, but it seems unfair for people to give other battle shonens poor treatment.
Oh, don't.
Okay, so...
I have to be careful here, because
right.
I am very salty about Bleach.
He is very
salty. Now, here's
salty.
the thing, though. I've gone back and rewatched Bleach's first 60 episodes probably about 4 or 5 times, because I legitimately liked those. I'm talking about over the course of my life, Jacob, not recently.
No, I know.
But the thing is that MHA's first 3 episodes are better than all of the first 60 episodes of Bleach.
Yeah, because
I get it that yes, we give some undue hate towards other battle shonen, and the thing is, you can talk about Naruto because you've actually read the manga, right?
Yeah, and I watched I don't know if I got to ship it in the anime, but I watched almost all of the original series.
Okay, cool. I'll tell you that the quality of execution of the story elements brought in MHA's first couple episodes alone take the pants off any of these other battle shonen, I'm sure.
And here's the reason why. This is one of those things. This is something that I've been it's been turning in my head a lot recently, and that's the idea of the beauty of simplicity. Because MHA is around episode 50, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is, they have time and time again shown us that they know exactly what this show is about.
Yep.
And that they stick to that. They don't get sidetracked. They don't get distracted. They keep the main thing the main thing. Yep. And you have no idea how amazing that is, how important that is, and how rare that is.
To us as people that, yes, we are biased against longer running shows because it gives us a little bit of a
it makes us worried that they'll be able to keep that quality over the long haul, right?
Right, but think about the way that this show is being produced versus those other shows. Now, if I remember correctly, was Naruto just going nonstop until
I don't know.
That's why all the filler were there.
I don't think I ever caught up.
No, I think it was because that's why there's so much anime filler there.
Yeah, I believe so. I think that sounds about right.
That whole way of doing things is, I'm sorry, it's stupid.
Well, it's dated is the thing.
It's dated.
Yeah,
Thank you. Guys, just because something came out a long time ago doesn't mean that we have to excuse it for bad practices, for bad forms.
Because here's the thing. The fact Naruto and Bleach, awesome. They did their thing and they did it and great.
Yeah,
right?
MHA might not have existed without Naruto.
Exactly, right. Yeah. Because it's the things that we see other stories do that basically inspires other creators to be like, oh my gosh, it's straight up plus ultra type stuff of, one for all, passing it on to the next person who cultivates it and passes it on to the next person.
Exactly.
So the fact that a lot of times people call MHA Green Naruto,
You know why they can say that, but you also are...
But the thing is, they can say that because I'm sure that there was a ton of inspiration taken from Naruto as well as, American comics and things like that. And that's a good thing.
Yeah.
So
I think that on some level what it is this is where I'm coming from with this is very subjective kind of viewpoint of this, but I view that older long-running shows are kind of like MMOs. I played a lot of MMOs growing up. So when you get attached to your MMO and then a new flashy one comes along, it kind of pisses you off that MMO is getting the new flashy treatment and it's not yours because you've invested so much time and energy and emotional everything into this show. You want it to be the best, but the thing is when you see that MMO as what it is, you kind of go, oh, yeah, it's eventually going to become essentially what I dislike. And the reason for that is ultimately because I think people lose passion. People who are the creators, they lose the passion for their own projects. I think it's really impressive that One Piece is still going strong and hasn't had some Boruto reboot, sequel, whatever thing. Bleach is dead. Like, Bleach is just dead in the water, and there's a whole bunch of other reasons for that. Next question's from David Asmi. When it comes to generic character archetypes, which ones do you enjoy the most and which ones do you dislike the most? We've answered this question quite a lot, actually, but in terms of the generic ones, I think the kind of the plucky young kind of coming of age kind of eyes, with hope in them kind of archetype. It's basically that childhood innocence that hasn't seen the world yet archetype. Yeah. I love that. I love that stuff.
Yeah, mine is very simple. Or similar. I love the Genki characters. Usually they're girls, but it's just because the idea of having a happy, positive character that cares, right? That's almost always a good idea because one, people like that do exist. It's not that abnormal, right? So you don't really need to explain it, but it's also something that just flat out makes your story more enjoyable.
Fair asks, how tall are you? 6'2" and 6'4".
Yep.
Bago Joestar asks, what do you think about stands in general? Stands are genius.
They're
stands
fantastic.
Are hilarious. Yeah. Stands are over the top, ridiculous, and so much fun.
This is my favorite thing about stands. It's the fact that there's no, as far as we've seen, there isn't any real escalation. So that means that it's about things being different, not about things being bigger and better.
I do think, though, that we have seen a little bit of escalation.
Yeah,
but the thing is that it's not the kind of thing where someone is going to get multiple stands.
Right, exactly.
It's not the kind of thing where someone is going to have
their stand, change.
Yes.
I mean, it could, I guess, but we haven't seen that yet.
But ultimately, this is something that's really scary, is that we can't really have a training arc in JoJo's. Do you guys realize that? Like, how does someone train their stand?
Right.
Now here's the thing. We haven't finished JoJo's.
Yeah, so
that might happen at some point.
Uh-huh.
But that kind of stuff in there allows for just pure execution of story.
Sid X. Lately I've been trying to write a story, but I don't know where to get started or how to start the beginning. If you guys could give me a few tips. By the way, I'm no professional writer, just want to write for fun and as a hobby. Thanks, guys. Love your channel. I still don't know what's with Caleb and magnets. And you need to watch our Made in Abyss reactions.
Watch our Made in Abyss reactions. I mentioned a lot of magnets things in there. Yeah. Or join the Discord and just ask what's with Caleb and magnets. You'll find out there.
You'll get some wacky answers. Where to start a story?
Yeah.
Where the story starts.
Yeah. Also, you're trying to say, I've been trying to write a story. I don't know where to get started or how to start the beginning. But to specifically start the beginning, since you are starting at the beginning, I do feel like you need to have some kind of anchor point into the story that you love writing about as kind of like a fallback. So So something that is obviously going to help you is just writing in general.
You don't have to start writing, you don't have to write your book or your story chronologically.
Right.
You can write whatever part you want.
Right. So just have something that you enjoy writing about your story that can keep you writing on a consistent basis, and then the story will evolve from there. I do think the main important thing is just to find a way to consistently schedule out writing for your story over a long period of time, and you will write your story.
And as for intangibles, the characters and the themes are always a great place to start. You can start with the world if you want to, but
I wouldn't.
I personally wouldn't.
We're a big
personal preference.
We're a big fan of getting the characters and what the story's kind of themes are going to be about. Lex the Graceful Rival asks, I'm currently writing a story that consists of a large cast, and I realize that a lot of my characters have a tragic backstory. I was wondering how I can avoid my story feeling unnatural or melodramatic because of this. Do you have any tips about revealing backstories of characters in a natural way? And finally, how do you personally decide whether to have a character's backstory revealed or not? I think that one of the ways you can avoid having your story feel unnatural or melodramatic is that you don't have to tell everything about the backstory. One of the things that real people do is they don't share everything. Leave some things up to the viewer imagination. You can show hints of their backstory, and that's it. Sometimes that's actually more interesting for the reader than actually getting the backstory, because the backstory oftentimes feels like exposition dumps.
It can, and especially, and if it's something that's a tragic backstory, you do not want to have that happen. Because it should have an emotional response from the audience.
Exactly.
So, and as for having too many, depending on the setting, it can make sense for the characters to have tragic backstories.
Totally.
If you're dealing with something where like most of the cast are like, I don't know, like kids on the street or something, right?
Yeah.
Then their home life probably wasn't the best.
Yeah.
You know, like that's just something that will probably end up happening.
Right.
What that actually looks like, you can go into that, but by having like, if you have that be something that you can basically mention and address, or you know, or whatever, that way the audience is like, oh yeah, that's right. It does make sense that there are a lot of people
like in Oliver
this.
Twist, for instance. You brought up kids on the street. The guy that's leading all the kids around and helping them steal from people and stuff, he just rapid fire gives a one phrase backstory to like a whole bunch of them all at once. And that's literally like, yeah, there's their backstories. Done. Moving on.
Yep.
And basically that is something you can do.
Yeah, that's really
if you
clever,
want
right?
to just en masse give a bunch of backstories.
Sure.
Just have a character that's kind of the leader, that kind of knows all these characters,
right?
And just goes boop boop boop, backstory.
Yep.
And here's the thing. Make it super simple.
Oh yeah.
Because you just like their mom died. This person's dad abandoned them. Okay, cool.
Right.
Now, the character, if you have a main character or a couple main characters to focus, the ones that would make sense for their character, be inquisitive and curious, have them ask questions, be like,
exactly.
So what happened?
Right.
I don't want to talk about it.
And you can have that be a way to basically explain when there's strange behavior that happens, because when you do backstory like that, that can be basically a replacement for doing the shtick, right?
Yep.
Where they're ditzy and they always fall over.
The pyromaniac.
Or the pyromaniac or whatever, right? You can because those are helpful. There's reasons we use those in storytelling. It gives the audience an immediate solid grounding on who this person is, and then you can give them depth later on as we just spend more time with them, right?
Yep.
And by doing something like that, you can basically give them a way for the audience to insert themselves into the shoes of the character, and that way when they start doing things that might seem strange or weird or whatever, they can remember, oh yeah, man, their dad abandoned them. Wow, what would I do if something like that happened, right? And because you're not focusing on the character being the one giving the backstory, you don't need to go into a lot of detail into it. You don't need to communicate the full emotion of it just yet.
Totally. Yeah. And also, like, have someone essentially have a backstory that's, you know, you can have that classic kind of edgy character with the backstory. They program the most tragic backstory. Basically, if they have such a tragic backstory, why would they tell anyone about it? Basically, you can have that be a running gag of like, what's their backstory?
Sure.
And it's like, who knows, but it's got to be something horrible. And maybe you have it revealed later on in the story that it's actually the most simple one phrase backstory, and it might not even be as tragic as all the others or something.
And you could even make that a point of character development where they're constantly trying to get attention and stuff because they're feeling sorry for themselves and they haven't been able to move on. You know,
there's so many ways
there are so many ways you can do this. But those are some ideas.
Great question. I would say it's a good thing that you are looking for ways to avoid melodrama in your story, because too many stories nowadays are just oversaturated by it. It's basically all of what fan fiction is, if you think about it.
Or episodic storytelling a lot of the time.
Sure.
Like a lot of it's just based around a melodrama.
Yep.
If it's not comedy.
Guys, that was a great podcast. Thank you so much for submitting your questions.
Yes, those are fantastic.
Looking forward to you guys watching our Attack on Titan Season 3 reactions. It'll be really cool.
Yeah.
Again, reminder, if you want to have your questions answered in the podcast, leave them in the comments down below.
Yes.
And we'll get right to them. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all next time.